territory. So New Zealand started administering Western Samoa really as a colony, okay? And it reached tragic proportions with the Mau. Have you heard of the Mau? The Mau was the Samoan independence. Now, I want you to contrast American Samoa. Chief Norrie said, hey, you know what? We're going to go with the Americans. And we're going to make a deal with the Americans. The Americans are going to take care of us, and they can have the military. Western Samoans had no such consultation. Okay? And so the Mau, Samoa, Mo Samoa. What does that mean? Samoa for Samoans. And they marched, they had that little office down there, you know, the Fiso and Mau. And New Zealand troops came in, and on this day, December 28, 1929, they shot 11 Samoans. Killed them. Samoans were unarmed. And this man, Tupuatam Sessimeo, was killed. That would be the equivalent, forgive me, of killing the king of Tonga, okay? These people were so farsighted. They were so thoughtful, particularly this man. He was such a wonderful, he was a peacemaker, he was a diplomat. Okay? Tragedy. Independence finally made in 1962, and now it's a very flourishing and active independent state. So those are the two different histories. And remember that American Samoa had no history of conflict. Western Samoa, yeah, there's that history background. Well, let's come to settlement in the United States, okay? Here we all are. How did we get here? Well, my folks came from England. Your folks came from somewhere else. Let's talk about that. First of all, Samoans, I want to say Tonans, are explorers and colonizers. It's a voyaging culture. These are people like, I talked to a chief when I was a teenager in Sabaki, who told me that he, as a boy, he'd seen these giant voyaging boats. It was no big deal. You want to go to Fiji? Hey, jump on. You're there. You want to go. And you can listen to the chiefs talk, and they're talking about Fiji and this person in Tonga. There's immense links. They're going everywhere. Samoan culture is probably, in my opinion, probably the greatest culture of hospitality in the world's ever known. And Samoans are personally charismatic. And there's a paradox there, because it's a consensus culture. It's a group culture. But Samoan individuality is very strong. Very charismatic. We'll talk about that, Jay. Samoans are very athletic, and they perform extremely well. And we'll talk about that. I mean, you know, have NFL recruiters walking around the taro patches down in Nāfanua, you know, looking for talent. They're very resilient. A very sad story. A film crew was making a documentary on my work. My friend Lilo Manueli tapped me on the shore, standing by the van, he taps me on the shoulder. He says, excuse me. And I said, what's wrong? He said, look, and it slammed his hand on the door of the van. And he sat there for 2 minutes and said, excuse me. I mean, the Samoan tolerance for pain is mind-blowing. And then there's extremely extended family structure. I was flying one time, actually on Hawaiian Airlines, down to Hilo, sitting next to the police chief of Hilo. We got talking about Samoa. He said, oh, we have such a problem with Samoans. I said, what do you do? What are you doing to catch these Samoan scofflaws? Well, we sent them to jail. I said, is that the jail I've seen up there above Hilo, above Kona? He says, yeah. I said, now is that the jail that has TV, ping pong, 3 meals a day? He says, yeah. You know? I said, you just described Samoan heaven. He says, well, what do you suggest we do? I said, you really want to change things? Again, I said, here's what you do. Catch little Simi out there lifting a car or whatever he's doing, selling some pot. And you bring him in and say, Simi, what's your family name? And he tells you his family name. You say it's Samoan Dr. I can do that because it's my village. And say, who's your chief? Oh, Samoan Dr. I love this. Great. So then you write a letter to his village, to that guy. And your letter says this: your family is being embarrassed in these islands because of the action of Simi. And he says, what'll happen? I said, Simi will disappear. This is what I said. You'll never see him again. He will be gone.
Until he's 40 years old.
No, you'll never see that kid again. You tell those chiefs that they're being embarrassed up in Hawaii, that's the end of that. So we have large expatriate populations in Auckland. I did an experiment one day. I was down in Auckland. I thought, I wonder if I can go the whole day without speaking any English. If I could just speak Samoan, Tongan, and Maori. And I did it, no problem. Of course, I was on Karanga Happy Road. This is where all these saying, yeah, exactly. I had a nice time. Wellington. Why on earth would a Samoan want to go there? I mean, it's so cold.
A lovely place.
That's freezing.
That's why
Windy.
it's great. Same as coming to Utah.
Exactly, coming to Utah.
That's where he was born.
Okay. Sydney, a nice population in Sydney and Melbourne. We've lived in New Zealand and Melbourne. Honolulu, of course, big population in Honolulu. And it was really funny. I flew down there one time. I was being met by a professor who's Japanese. I was giving some lectures, and he's there to welcome me. And I had a lot of gear. You know, Samoans don't travel light. And he sees all these Samoan guys carrying all my stuff. He says, what are you doing with those guys? I said, yeah, they're cool. No, you understand the Samoans? Yeah, the Samoans. Well, what are they doing with your stuff? He said, they're helping me. Los Angeles, a lot in Los Angeles, Oakland, the Bay Area, and over in the San Francisco side too, Pacific Palisades. Of course, a lot in Salt Lake City and stuff. There's other places, Seattle. Oh, sorry, that's twice. Oh, I did have to tell you one story. How are we doing at the time, Jake? Am I out of time? Sure. What?
Keep going.
Okay, so I'm changing buses in San Francisco. You know, to a different terminal. I know it's a Samoan boy driving the bus. So we get up to the terminal. I'm supposed to get off United. I said, this guy shakes his head and he keeps driving. I said, Sully, well, pay Otali. I said, hey, please put me here, politely. I said, hey, is something wrong with you? I told you to put me here. And he turns around and he says, who said that? He's looking at all these microphones. And I said, I did. I'm speaking Samoan, I'm speaking English. He says, who taught you how to say that? I said, what do you think I am, Palani? And then he said, well, what are you? I said, you've never heard of it, Ted. You never heard of Nāfanua? He says, what? I said, yeah, my dad's from Asal, my mother's from Sasina. And he says, Talofa. Now, one of the major motivations for people leaving the islands, and this is including Tonga, okay, Tonga and Samoa, church ties. A lot of Catholic, Methodist, Anglican, a lot of Mormons, education, Polynesians revere education. Let's see, entertainment, here we have sports, we talked about, mainly to get better jobs, better paying jobs. It's really hard in Nuku Alofa, it's really hard not to get a decent, well-paying job. And we have a remittance economy in Samoa.